Mr. President of the University, Mayor of the City, dear Dean, dear students, good afternoon to all of you. I would like to start with 3 thank yous. First of all, thank you very much to the Marbella International University Center for the privilege of being keynote speaker on this inauguration ceremony. The second thank you is to the Dean, is to Oscar. He was one of the most brilliant members of the government I belong to. I know that his brilliance and enthusiasm is building the soul of this magnificent project, academic project. Congratulations to all of you. Congratulations, Oscar, and thank you. And the third thank you is to all of you too for asking me to speak or to speak today on politics and women, and also about my own experience. I hope to be helpful. I have chosen a strange way to start this conference. I am going to read you a tweet. The tweet says, "Hi, I am Spanish. What else would you like my sister to beat you at?" This is the tweet that became most popular in Spain during the last Olympic Games celebrated in London. Full of irony, these were the 140 characters that summarize better than any other headline the great success that reached the Spanish athletes, women. To be sincere, the Olympics did not start quite well for us, for Spain. However, over the weeks, things went better for us. Finally, we won 17 medals, 11 of them by women, individually or in team sports. In fact, the only member of the Spanish delegation who won 2 medals was a woman, the swimmer Mireia Belmonte. Well, as I said, women lead the pace of the Spanish Olympic team. But as it is usual in these cases, the root of this success was short-lived. Nobody remembers any radio or television program or show that ever informed about how the fantastic water polo team that won the Olympic silver medal trained or prepared itself, for instance. Nobody knows anything about the humble players that won brilliantly the bronze medal. And we still are wondering why Mireia Belmonte, the best swimmer we have ever had in history, did not hit the Spanish delegation at the closing ceremony. Like the humble player Begoña Fernández said, in the Spanish sport press, you can see pictures of a naked girl, but it is much more complicated that our results come out. This is the reason why I have decided to start this conference with this is the reason, why I have decided to start this conference with these examples. Beyond the fact that I love sports, I believe these examples are perfect to see how our society still treats women. Years of efforts and improvement are in media headlines one day, and after that day, nothing. Sexism, prejudice, or discrimination still remain strong, more sadly than before, but they exist. This said, we are fortunately far from the first episode that was crucial for the fight against discrimination and prejudice worldwide. I don't know if you know that episode. It happened in the US. During the first half of the 20th century, American symphony orchestras were composed only exclusively by men. One day, already jaded, the women musicians provoked an enormous protest. That rebellion was successful. Women musicians achieved something that later on has revealed itself as a key milestone. They got the blind auditions. From that moment on, a black curtain covered the stage during the test, and all musicians who aspired to be members of the orchestra were invisible for the jury. In a very, very short time, women became half of the members of the American symphony orchestras. This episode is a classic example of prejudice. You have to hide a woman so that only her music can be heard, with the goal that nobody knows that the musician is female. Of course, since that moment to the present, we have given many steps forward, but prejudice still remains. And politics, as it couldn't be otherwise, is a reflection of society. For better or worse, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously, because of the inertia, the people's representatives tend to reproduce existing behaviors, behaviors that perpetuate the biased treatment that society has towards women. Paternalism, emulation, overreacting, these are some of the flaws that women in politics are not able to get rid of. It is as if we still ask for permission, or even worse, as if we ask for forgiveness in order to participate under equal conditions in public policy, a field that belongs to all. If in addition we are mothers, we do not only ask for forgiveness, but we live with the feeling of guilt, our professional fulfillment. Well, in spite of all these efforts we have already made, women are still very far from men in the access to positions of public participation and decision-making. I invite you to have a look at the data. In August 2015, United Nations women warned of, in the world, only 22% of the representatives in parliament are women. In Europe, women represent, in Nordic countries, 41%, but only 24% if we exclude them. In Americas, women are 25% and 23% in the sub-Saharan Africa. In Asia, the Arab countries, and the Pacific, there are 18, 15, and 15.7% of women in parliaments, respectively. In the 188 countries analyzed by UN Women, there were only 70% of women ministers, and among them, only 25 occupied the finance ministry or budget, and only 7 were defense ministers. 19 is the number of women head of states or government, less than 10% of the total. And for Spain, it ranks the 19th place of the countries surveyed by United Nations Women, with 31% ministers, and the 18th place with 29% of women MPs. This is the reality of women in politics today, a reality that, as I mentioned before, is simply a reflection of the social structure. We only have to look at the number of women members of the boards of companies listed on the stock exchange, the number of women who run financial institutions, or the average salary of a man and a woman. You will conclude that politics just reproduce a hard reality. According to the latest study on the wage structure of United Nations Women, published in April 2015, the gap between salaries of men and women was on average 24%. So women, we earn 24% less salary than men for doing exactly the same job. In the world, there is only 22% of women running companies. In Spain, the average is even lower, 18%. Certainly, it is a low percentage, but it is far superior to the 2% we had in Spain in 2005, just before the parliament passed a law, the Equality Act, whose goal was to gradually reverse these numbers. Okay, once we are here, why is this information important? Why it is important to know the number of women MPs, women ministers, or women head of government in the world? Very easy. Because political decision-making is done by those who are in charge. Political decisions are taken by those who occupy the seats in Congress and in Senate, by those in government departments, or by those who run a council of ministers. I have had the privilege of being one of these women politically in charge. Women with the power to take decisions that change averages and change lives. But we need much more. We need more women and men, both working for equality, so working for justice. You are just ready to start a new year in college. Be aware of what it means. Because if I would have to choose 3 advices I would give for you for the future, for you to reach your dreams, I would answer these 3: education, education, and education. I know you know that education is the key to get a good job, to make money, to reach economic individual freedom, to get success. but it is only a very small part of what education means in life. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Because education is also the key to reducing poverty, to eliminating gender inequality, to creating a sustainable planet, to preventing needless death and illness, and to fostering peace. And in a knowledge economy, education is the new currency by which nations maintain economic competitiveness and global prosperity. Education is for sure the most critical investment we can make. Of course, in general, but it is in general because education is the best investment any particular human being can make on itself. If I have to talk about myself, the first question would be how education influenced my life. And probably the best answer would be this. I am law professor. I have been member of parliament. I have been vice president of the Congress. I have been minister too. I could have been a law professor and have not been MP. I could have been MP and not have been vice president of the Congress. I could have been vice president of the Congress and have not been minister. But I could not have been any of this without the opportunity of a chair like yours, of a chair in college. So there, in that chair, you have the key to all what you want to do, what you wish to be in life. That said, what are the skills someone has to cultivate to be a good leader? There are many definitions of leadership. If any of you at this right moment looks for leadership as a book title in Amazon, for instance, you will find more than 30,000 results. But among all definitions, the concept of leadership I like the most was formulated by the former Prime Minister of Spain, Felipe González, some years ago. He said, firstly, a leader can only be someone able to take over the mood of people, someone with enough sensibility to understand others. You will only be accepted as a leader if people believe you can put on their shoes. A leader can only be someone who can change the other's emotions, and someone can only change others' mood from negative to positive or from positive to more positive if that person deeply believes in the project he or she offers. Thirdly, leadership will only succeed if you, that person, have the ability to transmit a project as an exciting idea, as a dream to fall in love with, as a project that deserves the effort to make it happen. And finally, he said, leadership requires emotional strength. And emotional strength, according to Prime Minister González, means something very simple, but also very hard to get. To be able to keep calm, not only when things go well, but also when things go wrong, particularly when things go wrong. You cannot lead. You cannot convince people that the change you are proposing is going in the right direction if they observe you losing your temper with every obstacle, with every difficulty. Thus, if you want to detect a political leader, look for someone able to understand others, to take care of others' concerns, to encourage growing support for the change he or she promotes, to generate enthusiasm, and to respond firmly in the face of adversity. Agreeing with that definition, I would like to tell you, in the year you start, about my personal experience in leadership. I believe you need 3 aptitudes to be a good leader. The first of them, it would be self-knowledge, self-examination. Do not hide to yourself your real motivation. You need to know it. You have to know about the personal engine that moves you, what you want, what you look for, what moves you to go for it. Examine yourself. Find the inner strength of your life, because only then you will be able to potentiate it. I believe this is important because you will pass through hard moments. It was not easy for me either. I always liked politics. Politics and law. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, a professor, and a politician. I worked hard to pay my studies. I worked as a basketball coach when I was a teen, in a department store. As soon as I reached the legal age to work, I got the grants I needed. And when I finished my law degree, I started teaching at university. I got another grant, and I went to Canada to study my PhD. I will never forget the minus 52 degrees Celsius one day in Quebec City. But what we'll never forget, it will be the loneliness, the hard loneliness. These hard days, my grandfather came to my mind. I have always thought that he was the person that pushed me, without trying to love politics. I know you come from many countries, so I don't know how familiar you are with the history of mine. We have a young democracy. Our constitution was passed in 1978 and after 40 years of dictatorship. Since 1936 to 1939, we suffered a civil war. My grandfather fought with only 15 years old in the Spanish Civil War. After the war, he suffered concentration camp, prison, exile, and a long and a silent post-war until we all saw the light of democracy. I was still a girl when I knew he had done something weird, something a grandfather doesn't do. He had been to a sort of discotheque or something similar, and a friend of mine told me she had seen my grandfather there at the disco. As you can understand, I got really angry. I waited for him, and when he came home, I asked him about it, and he answered me, "Carmen, take a seat, please. I want you to realize something." And then he said to me, "I have never been young. The history of my country has told my youth. So you have to understand, sometimes I just want to experience some things." And I knew from that moment that I would fight so for that any other grandchild would have to listen to something like that from her grandfather ever again. Each time I went through difficult moments, each time I go through difficult moments, I think about the reason why I was there, why I am here, about my real motivation, and everything become worthy again. The second would be empathy. I told you before, a leader can only be someone able to take over the mood of people, someone with enough sensibility to understand the other. You will only be accepted as a leader if people believe you can put on their shoes. I was named Minister of Defense in 2008. I knew it was not going to be easy. I was 37 years old, I was Catalan, I was a woman, and I was pregnant. 7 months of pregnancy. And I was going to make decisions over more than 130,000 people. An army with a non-democratic past, an army that helped Franco to overthrow by force Republic, that helped Franco to win the war and supported the regime until the end, an army involved in a coup d'etat in 1981. So I thought about what all these 4-star generals, officials, and soldiers would be thinking of my appointment as Minister of Defense. And I decided to do 2 things in my immediate first days in church in order to win their respect and to make them know that they had also mine. In Spain, as you already know, nothing starts before 9 a.m., except life in military camps. The day after my appointment as a minister, I went at 6 a.m. to a military barrack. I spent there the whole day until 6 p.m. when soldiers finished their daily training. I watched them run, shoot, clean the weapons. I ate lunch in the canteen with them. I was telling them I wanted to know them, to understand them, to put on their shoes, that I had respect for their service. Also, by surprise, the day after, in my 7th month of pregnancy, I flew to Afghanistan. It was going to be the first time out of 18 trips I was to take to Afghanistan. 12 hours of a military flight with my 7 months of pregnant belly, but like we feel pregnant women, full of strength and life. It was there that I won their respect, not only showed them mine. When I was back home, the first phone call I received was the King's. He's formerly the first soldier of Spain, the first general of the military. He just said to me, as usual with a half smile, "Carme, you have just won them over." It was the starting of 4 magnificent years of a close relationship between the army and myself. The third advice would be constancy. I want to finish with something I really understand crucial: constancy. Leadership means to persevere, to fight hard for what you look for, not to give up. The defeat of today is the starting of tomorrow's victory. Your victories are these dreams you never gave up. And just 2 last recommendations. Balance. Do not abandon your personal life to be a professional person. You can do both. You will be better if you do both. You will do both better if you live in balance. Do not lose half of the life. Do not lose family, friends, children. And that last recommendation is not only for women. Of course, do not sacrifice being mother, but men neither. You can do and enjoy both too. And the kids need you too. And finally, teamwork. I want you to know, any of you, you are not alone. In fact, it's probable you cannot do it alone. As Michael Jordan said, I told you I loved sports. As Michael Jordan said, individual job wins matches, but only teamwork wins championships. Win your championship. Yes, you can. Remember, an utopia is only a premature truth. Thank you.